Howdy, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. You have Tua here and Masi, all the way from Aotearoa. It's been a beautiful day here in South Central Texas, 72 degrees in the middle of winter. These are the days that help me remember why I love being in Texas
Well, you made
instead
the
of the
right
cold.
decision.
Yes. So, there's the low cost of living, the culture and the people, and then just the politics as well, which is going to be a major focus of our program today. But Mr. Atearoa, how are things in your neck of the woods?
Thank you, Tua. New Zealand is pretty good. I can't complain. Summer in New Zealand is really good. It's not really too hot from compared to the hot days in Tonga or Samoa. So New Zealand is relatively nice during the summer, especially on this day. It's a Sunday here in New Zealand. A lot of wind, so it's pretty breezy. So yeah, I had Um, our brother just come in from Tonga today to New Zealand. Asked him how's the weather in Tonga. He said it's scorching hot and humid. So New Zealand is really nice at the moment. So yeah, that's everything here. But yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, Masi, did you watch the BYU game today?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 11-2. Really happy with the result. Of course, we wanted to play in the playoff. They had a 10-2. I personally projected them being 10-2, and I actually thought that would be enough um, to go to the championship. But obviously, with the whole um, tie system, they weren't on the top two. It was Iowa State and Arizona State. So hopefully BYU does better next year, and this win actually should put them in the top 12, top 15 starting next
Mm-hmm.
year. So it's going to be a different kind of season compared to this year, always kind of being the underdog. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, this is a great win for BYU football, right? I really is a bummer. It's still a bummer we didn't make the playoffs.
yeah,
But what more can you ask for? We had our destiny in our own hands. We
yes,
didn't come through, but this was a big win. A lot of eyeballs watch Colorado. So Colorado
mm,
has a lot of eyeballs on them. You have Hunter, you have Shador Sanders, you have Coach
yeah.
Prime. A
Heisman
lot
Trophy
of
winner too.
yes, Heisman Trophy winner. And really great opportunity for Kalani and the team here to get some exposure, right? So
Hmm.
a lot of recruits, a lot of sponsors, a lot of eyeballs, and this was a great win. Excited for it. I'm pretty happy for BYU football considering the circumstances. So this is a good thing. Probably
Yeah,
the second best outcome if since we couldn't make the playoffs,
absolutely. Yeah,
and really excited for that.
yeah.
Yep. Could always, just we always hope for more. But
Yeah.
this
No, but
week's,
that's
yeah,
no. I was gonna say
go ahead.
too that that should always be the expectation. Always go to the playoff. But then it's good to end off on a good note. But hopefully next year, to me, next year is gonna be. I think it's gonna be a little bit tougher because one, all the teams know that you're expected to win. It's different. It's
Hmm.
different when you were projected to be
Underdog.
in the bottom feeder, of the conference this year. So you're not gonna catch anyone by surprise. This year
Hmm.
is a lot harder when you're the top three teams in the conference, and everyone's
Yep.
gonna give you their best. So it's a different kind of challenge, and I just hope Shitake will be able to withstand and play even better and prepare his team even better. So yeah, next year is gonna be pretty difficult, but they have a
Yeah.
chance. They have a chance.
I didn't realize this until the commentators in the bowl game said that Retzloff was not 100% against Arizona.
Yes, Arizona State and Kansas, those two games, and those are two games
Yeah.
they lost, and that's
Yeah.
the
I
thing. I
mean,
was
Arizona State. Yeah.
Yeah, no, too, and I was talking to Danny. We were watching the game live, and I'm saying, man, couldn't we have a second string who was a lot better in running the ball just to keep the because he wasn't really running the ball like he used to. And then maybe if he was passing was okay, at least get it to the flat, but play action and stuff. But just to keep him running, I don't know. I'm trying to understand that thinking. Yes, he was, but I guess the coaches said he was probably better than the second string. I don't know. I just have a hard time if your player can't give their best. I don't know why we didn't go with our second string guys that can,
Mm,
you know, run because I think that's what makes BYU actually do really well was when Retzloff was
the
actually
threat
running
of the
the
run.
ball too.
Yep.
I don't
It
know. I
showed
don't
in
know if
the
any.
it showed in the bowl game today, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Is when Retzloff ran the ball on some critical third down conversions and whenever coverage was downfield, it's that additional thing to worry about that made them dangerous.
yeah. But what are your thoughts, Tua? You think I don't know. Was our second string guys quarterback wasn't he was not as good as our first string, even though he was hurt, or I don't know. I don't. What do you think of that? I'm
I
just
hard for me to tell. I haven't seen anybody else play enough snaps to be like, yeah, he's a good option. You know what I mean? You'd have to
okay.
be at practice to be like, oh yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. But then at the
the
same
assumption.
time,
Yeah, the
yeah,
assumption. It's just my assumption. Just thinking, if you're like 70%, if you're 70% first string quarterback is still better than your second string, I don't know if that's a good sign.
no,
But
it isn't. That's a depth situation,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And maybe that was the calculation was the backup
Okay.
guy wasn't as good as 70% of your starter. Maybe
Yeah,
that's that'll be a focus in the portal transfer
yeah,
portal is maybe having a couple more options. I know Utah, that's what Utah suffered from,
yeah.
right? They had
Rising, go
Cam
down. Cam
Rising
Rising.
go down, and then the Zach Wilson's brother, the Wilson
Yeah.
kid, came up, but he just wasn't as good as a true freshman. Just what I think was a little too much too soon for him, but
Mm,
still a great season. Can't
yeah.
complain because we've had worse seasons. So still a good
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
Excited for Kalani. He has a long-term extension with BYU.
Yeah.
So that gives
That's
some
another plus.
stability. I think that's going to be a pretty powerful thing for recruits,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even though the whole, did you see I think the University of Miami coach like retired or something like that was complaining about the transfer portal and
Hmm.
was just like he's exhausted because they have a good season and still like 18 kids are going to
Transferring out.
leave transferring out and he's like, man, don't you like it here? They said, yeah, we love it here, it's great, but got to make some money while we can. And which I think is a good
Absolutely.
thing, man, because
Yeah.
they could get injured at any moment. Their career is going to be done. They're not going to make it
Yeah.
to the NFL when you're
Yeah.
injured. And if you do, you drop in the draft if you get injured.
Yeah.
So, there's just
Yeah.
so much money made on these players in
Yeah.
college that it is what it is, man. It's going to
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah. Though they can, what they
Hey,
can do to, oh, what is it?
no, just
Nunsky.
I'm just gonna recognize Nunsky right here. Malo. He says Malo Gautama chill Sunday tuning in from Aotearoa. Hope y'all had a good Christmas with the fams. 100%. Nuns was great. Masi, how was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. Just had it with my wife's family here at the house, and it was just super chill, Nunsky. Yeah, hope you had a good Christmas and New Year's coming up soon. So looking forward to that.
I know. Yeah. So go
No,
ahead,
I
Masi.
was
What were
just
you gonna
thinking.
say?
No, I was just thinking. Yeah, it's tough. I think they need to do more on giving a better time frame of when. I think there's too many transferring out. Like I think they have one right now, and they have another one in January, and then another one like before like fall. I think it's a bit too much, but I think the transfer portal should happen for kids. Because like I said, I know it's real. It just makes the job of the coaches much more harder, right? Because now they gotta recruit kids from the outside and also recruit with your own kids. But hey, it's part of the deal of the game because there's many times coaches leave in the middle of the season to go prepare for their new
Yep.
team, and then the students are just kind of stuck there in limbo. So
Stuck.
it's
And they
yeah,
and they don't have a your coach has to sit out 1 year, right? Like I
yes,
mean, there's
yeah,
there's funny stuff going on. To me, I think it's a good thing. I agree with you. They're probably gonna have to fine tune
hmm
some of the timing of
hmm
the portal transfers and make things work a little bit. It's it's a good thing to have the changes, but maybe it's a little too chaotic. Maybe they need to narrow it down. Maybe you can't enter the portal until maybe after a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
The postseason, so that because you don't have what's the team in in not West, yeah, in West Virginia, the Thundering Herd, the Green Tulane, no,
Yes,
not Tulane,
Marshall.
Marshall. They pulled out
Yes.
of their bowl game
Didn't
because kids sat out because they were going to transfer, and I think maybe that needs to change. It
yes.
will change because millions of dollars are being affected at that point.
Yes, I 100%. I did hear about that, and that's the thing. I think we need to change in college football to do it at the end of the season and just do it like a 2 week span. Whoever put their names in, and then that's it. And then let that also helps the teams who are recruiting them to get them opportunity to recruit them, and then assimilate to the new school and register and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did hear about that. That was unfortunate because they had to pull out of a bowl game, the school. So.
Yeah. So we got to figure that out, but there's a lot of smarter people than you and I working that out. Hopefully,
Mm.
so just bowl season. There's something I wanted to bring up, and for our program today, we're gonna go over some politics, primarily in the Kingdom of Tonga, and then also in New Zealand. Uh, Kind of going along with nuns there, and surprisingly, in some of our analytics, New Zealand is our number, or Auckland is our
Yeah.
number one city in the world for viewers and listeners. I think the
I'm
United
not
States
surprised.
overall is at the top, right? But it's spread over many cities. But as for the
Yeah.
number one city of listeners on Spotify, YouTube, and some other things, the top city is Auckland, New Zealand. So, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Aotearoa, you're not surprised. Give the reasons why you're not a surprise.
Tua, since I moved here to Auckland, New Zealand, I'm just been amazed on it was only Tonga and Samoans predominant, and then sprinkle some Fijians in the U.S. But like since I've been here, I've met so many Cook Islands, which I didn't really meet at any in America. Niueans, Tokelauans, and just so many, and many of those kind of smaller, more the minority within the
Hmm.
Polynesian community that have kind of mixed and mingled around here in Auckland, and it's just kind of more evident by Auckland being the number one kind of Polynesian city
City
capital.
in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you kind of share with me, those previous days on the analytics results on our program, that Auckland City was the most viewership on our program, I wasn't surprised because, when you get when you get many generations of Polynesians that have kind of made New Zealand their home, but they still care about the history of their home Pacific Islands. That's one motivator, and then Auckland has a really good culture of people still maintaining their connections back to Tonga, back to Samoa. So it kind of language wise, it kind of facilitate their own determination to learn more of the history. So this is just another option of them kind of tuning in because of that drive, and it helps when you're New Zealand is one of the only countries that kind of flies to many of these Polynesian island
Nations
states most of the time.
directly. Yeah.
Yes, and short flights, and it's the reason why New Zealand people kind of Auckland ain't no cheap city to
Mm,
live in.
mm.
It's not cheap, but many families make do here just because it's easier to get in and out to go back home to their home island states, and it's just the comfort the comfortability of just you'll be able to speak your own language. Auckland, I've kind of
Convenience.
yes, I think I shared with my other families, our families that kind of come here, that Auckland is one of the few places that I know that with your own Polynesian language, especially Tongan and Samoan, that you can literally use it to navigate the healthcare system, the utilities to pay your bills, even to buy a house. There's already so many Polynesian real estates that you can even buy a home, use them to kind of purchase a place or even find rental. And social providers, anything with the essential services. I don't know many countries that offer that. And that's another reason why
Outside
people
of the homeland, right?
outside of their homeland.
That's
And
pretty
it's the
crazy that you could do that. That if you're talking to someone, you can basically live your whole life,
Yo,
in Auckland,
yes,
and all the services facilitated for you in your
it's
native language.
in your native language. So people just put up with some of the ridiculous politics and the taxes and some of the things that make it really difficult, make it real difficult to live in Auckland. But because of that ability and that comfortability to navigate the system in an easy way for your family, people just make do and living here. So that's why I wasn't surprised to because Auckland is, now that I've kind of lived here and seen, it is a it is a pretty good gig if you can make it work here in Auckland.
Yeah, I mean that
So
for Polynesian diversity, probably yeah, Auckland's probably. I don't know if any
yeah,
other city comes even close, huh?
yeah,
Where you're
no,
saying, like you said,
no,
Cook Island, Futuna,
yes,
Uvea,
yes,
Tonga,
yes,
Samoa, Fiji, like you're
yes,
not gonna get that diversity of Polynesian islands in anywhere else in the world. So that's pretty awesome. Couple
yeah.
quick comments to follow up on. Water Bears, welcome to our official PR of
What's up,
the
Water
live
Bears?
digital cover. He's asking his question: is that a do rag? No, I'll take it off for a
Alpha
second.
Kegi, because he's from
Yo,
LA, too. Anyone who wears that, oh,
yeah.
okay, it's a hat.
So I got this. This is actually one of my Christmas presents because I can't
Yeah.
find hats. I have a pretty fat head. I can't find hats that fit my head. So my wife found on Amazon some 4/5X hats, and these fit. So I've been wearing it lately. When I was in college, before I went on my mission, I collected hats, and I came back from my mission, and then I just really hard to find hats, and I just really didn't, want to spend that time and money on it. So it's kind of nice to wear these hats with me. And then we have MBM Malo for the
Malo,
salute. Malo
yes,
MBM,
sir.
welcome. So we're going to spend some time and walk through a couple scenarios of politics, because one of them is in New Zealand, obviously for the Auckland. A lot of it impacts a lot of our Polynesian community in New Zealand. But
Mm,
before we do, we're going to revisit the PM's step down in the Kingdom of Tonga, and look at some of the perspectives. This is a good way to look at the perspective of a Western report on
mm,
politics in Tonga and their assumptions of what the politics and the culture is like. That's where we'll I would like a lot of our comment and view will be on. Masi is
okay,
listen to some of their perceptions and like, does it align with what we typically would expect and have in mind for what the Tongan or Polynesian perspective is, and then kind of just have that dialogue back and forth
okay.
on that. Let's try and pull it up here real quick. Any thoughts on that, Masi, or comments, or we'll
No,
just jump right into it?
yeah, let's go with it.
Prime Minister of Tonga has resigned before a vote of no confidence in Parliament. Siausi Sovaleni broke down in tears as he announced the news to his fellow MPs. The resignation follows months of political uncertainty after Tonga's king withdrew his confidence in the foreign minister and in Mr. Sovaleni as defense minister in February. John Frankel is professor in comparative politics at Victoria University of Wellington and says Tonga's king has shown dislike towards the prime minister for some time.
Well, I think he saw the signs of support drifting away. Parliament is made up of 26 MPs. 9 of them are noble representatives. The others are people's representatives. But the Prime Minister has clearly been losing support both amongst the nobles and amongst the people's representatives. And he must have seen that the writing was on the wall and decided that it was time for him to step down.
Yeah, so there was no need for a no confidence vote. But so why was Siausi Sovaleni facing one in the first place?
Well, he faced one last year and he won. An interesting vote because the nobles and the people's representatives split pretty much down the middle on the last vote. During this year, we've seen that the king has intervened more and more in the political order. Tonga used to be a constitutional monarchy. From 1875 onwards. The king held control over the government, appointed the prime minister. There were some elected.
Real quick,
Interesting.
when he,
Interesting.
yeah,
You said
I mean,
you.
Used to be. That's what I was gonna say. So what's changed? It's still a constitutional monarchy.
Hmm. Well, that's the I don't where are they getting these? I'm just assuming
Experts
what was
from.
the experts from? I'm like I don't even know the guy, and I can tell maybe is the guy maybe he's an expert. Maybe he's married. His wife is Tongan, so it makes him an expert. Yeah,
Hmm.
you know those ones. You know those ones. You,
Yeah. So he married a Polynesian and ate talo once for dinner, and now he's an
yeah,
expert.
yeah.
He said, yeah, it used to be a constitutional monarchy from the 1800s, and I'm like, man, did we
Mm,
forget something? Did we change? Are
hmm.
we? What are we now?
Yeah. No, Tua, this is the same. This is and I'm because this is like I'm thinking it's like an Australian, New Zealand kind of based news. They're the ones who've kind of really pushed when Akarisi Pohiva, when he was kind of
Mhm.
pushing to try to remove the king and everything. They've kind of just portrayed and carry out stories like how Tonga has been an oppression and people's rights and
Yeah.
stuff. So they're it looks like they kind of doing the same thing, but they don't know. It's like no, they gave more power to the people to run, and the king just still holds some power just to keep the checks and balances because we know there's going to be times that you're going to have to keep each other accountable. So it's still a constitutional monarchy. We're not like full democratic, and I hope we don't go full democratic process because there's a lot of instability that way. So obviously, I don't know what he was saying. They used to be. So obviously, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's reading or who's his sources he's talking to. But yeah,
Well,
Tonga is still a
no,
constitutional
and that's the
monarchy.
thing is right off the bat, he's already trying to portray it like, oh yeah, the king used to have absolute power and blah blah blah. I was like, dude, when you say constitution, automatically that means no one has absolute power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in theory, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Tupou the first self-imposed the Constitution on his himself and his
Yes.
heirs after him because the Constitution limited certain things. But the way they position it is like, oh yeah, they used to be a constitutional monarchy, gives the person the idea of, oh yeah, the king used to have this oppressive, like you were saying, oppressive power and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And I'm just like, Shana, relax, just and then he's like, oh, the king started to get more involved. He's the king here is less involved than kings in the past. And you know what? Him executing his political power is not him being oppressive. That's his political power to exercise. And then just
Correct.
like the commentator goes, there was no need for a vote of no confidence. Who determines whether there was a need for a vote of no confidence or not? And that is if the other MPs and noble representatives said, we
Yeah.
have no confidence. If there's enough votes to bring
Yeah.
up a vote of no confidence, then there is a need. See, it's those
Yeah.
little things. They're like
Yeah.
planting these little ideas. It's like, oh, there was no need for a vote of no confidence. Why? Because Australia didn't think there was a need, that New Zealand
Mhm.
didn't think there was a need for a vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
This is
Exactly.
kind of silly sometimes. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. Anyways,
No, and
hey,
I'm just thinking, it's because I guess Sovaleni tried the way he ran his government, and I can see why he ran his government like Tonga was like a full democratic, like he was doing the foreign affairs as if he's the one in charge of it. All foreign affairs has been gone to the king because he is. When everyone thinks of Tonga, they think of the king, not the prime
yeah,
minister, and that was his role, and also the defense ministry because the soldiers, the military of Tonga,
the
they're
loyalty. Yeah,
the commander in chief is the king, and he had the portfolio of exercising that, and he never gave it to the king to exercise or determine who should be appointed. But it's kind of like it was, and you see why New Zealand and Australia kind of pushed that narrative. They thought Sovaleni was doing everything because he was the elected PM to do all everything. There was no reason for a vote of no confidence. But I guess for you and I and people who have some kind of knowledge on how Tonga should be run, is like, no, that's the reason why there was a rift and he was on the wrong side because Tonga is not a full democratic country. It's a
no,
constitutional monarchy. So you
yeah,
have to work coincide like the king is your colleague into running the government. And he never he never included the king to run or do his carry out his duties. So to me, that's where I see the issue is, and that's why they're kind of advocating instead of just doing the journalists that they should be doing and just trying their best to figure out what was the reason why he was voted no confidence. They've already put, like what you said, seeds of
Yes,
mis of construing our thinking like it was all the fault of
the
the king
king.
or the opposition. There was there
Yeah,
was no need to bring this up. So Waleni was doing what every democratic country should do. But the difference is Tonga is not a democratic country; it's a constitutional monarchy.
yeah.
So
Well, and I just want to remind a lot of people, you do not want a pure democracy, right?
yes, sir.
Pure
Yeah,
democracies,
yeah,
you are subject to the mob, right? That's why, I mean, Europe had to figure this out for the longest time. This is why France and a lot of these European nations, when they first went to democracy, had so many revolutions. They were having revolution after revolution. Governments couldn't even stay in power longer than a year sometimes, and they have another
yeah.
revolution. It's because, a pure democracy, the mob mentality rules, and there's no one to protect the minorities, right? That's
Yes,
why you have a constitution. That's why
yes,
you have a republic. America
yes.
is not a democracy. America is a constitutional republic,
Republic. Yeah.
right? And people
Mhm.
people have this idea like, oh, the pure democracy is the answer. No, pure democracy means once the mob makes a decision, there
Mhm.
is no law and order. You're subject to whatever the mob decides.
Correct.
So yeah, we'll come back here.
Representatives of the people, but they were, it was just a talking shop, really. It's only in 2010 that changed, and there were significant democratic reforms. Now the king is selected by parliament ostensibly, and the king selects his own ministers or her own ministers, and there have been no female prime ministers. That
What does that have to do with the analysis?
It's Tua, it's part of those things. The gender equality and all these diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff that all this causes
They
all so
can't
much.
help it.
I don't know if he followed the DEI hire they did in the New Zealand military of that
Oh, the
lady,
ship.
the ship, and it was a brand new ship with modern tools, and it still got hit by a reef and sunk. I
Yeah.
don't know,
And
like
then
just, and that's what I'm trying to say to it. Like when we get, and that's why, like, dude, just whoever is competent, if you're a girl or a guy or whatever, if you're the best
that
one for
should
the job,
lead.
then that you should lead. Just because you're a woman and then you put up there just to you fit your quota of making sure you are so inclusive that you made this in, and then look, you lose millions of dollars of taxpayer money. So yeah,
And you know what made it even worse? That to me is more ironic because New Zealand and a lot of these people are about the global warming and
yeah,
the and stuff. That ship spilt thousands of gallons of oil and
oil,
stuff,
yeah,
and New Zealand said it's not their problem. New Zealand didn't even clean it up. I
mm,
think because it
not
was in Samoa that
Samoa,
and so Samoa was like, "Hey, are you guys gonna clean this thing?" And they're like, "No, it's international waters or whatever. It's not our problem." So it's just kind of ironic to me.
yeah,
Couple comments here we'll get into, so don't get too far. Last couple lives, the comments have gotten away from me. Clyde Moore says, "Malo Taulava Kautama, love the episode with Atenisi alum fellas."
what's up, Clyde
Yeah,
Moore?
that was great. Appreciate Masi working that out on the calendar, and then also Xiaoxi Ilayu for joining us.
Yeah,
Um, here's a couple funny comments from Nonsky. He looks like wannabe Robert De Niro. That's a pretty good observation
that's a good
because
one. Yeah.
for those who are joining, he's like the Timu version of Robert De Niro.
No wonder he's giving. De Niro should have stuck with acting. When he starts talking politics like
Yes.
this guy, maybe he should have just not do any interviews of this guy, and it would
Yeah.
have been
So
better.
anything associated with Robert De Niro means bad political analysis.
Bad output.
Here's another one from Water Bears, Robert DiGiorno. What's a Kumala lover? Hey, Mari Robert DiGiorno. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno Kumala. Yeah, it's not Kumala chips. It's Kumala straight from Vaini Poto.
By ni poto.
Yeah, where Clyde Moore says, in regard to the pollution, warm Pacific greetings. So yeah, kind of
It's always like
ironic.
that. No, I was gonna say, Dua, it's always like right. It always sounds good when they say all these things and this equity and all. It always sounds good, but when you execute it, man, things just crumble right before your eyes.
Yep,
But it always sounds
100%.
good.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. You know. All right, let's come back to DiGiorno, Robert DiGiorno. That's pretty
Was the
funny.
case under the current king's predecessor, who was a reformist king. But now that this king, his brother, came into office, there's been quite a few signs of attempts to retrench and bring back control by the monarchy. Last year in February, I think it was, the king expressed his lack of confidence in two ministerial office holders. The Minister of Defence portfolio, which was held by the Prime Minister himself. So that was a clear message to the Prime Minister. And also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who'd been appointed by the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister responded by accepting that and accepting that new appointments had to be made, trying to reconcile with the King. But there have been more and more signs that the King doesn't like the current Prime Minister, doesn't like the current government, and the King has a lot of power, particularly over the nobles. After all, the noble titles in Tonga were all created by the King back in the 19th century, so they don't really have any independence. They pretty much do what the King wants them to do.
Yeah, so
That's such a bad analysis. Where
This
did
is
these
a
guys
bit. It's
get
like,
this guy?
dude, let's see if we can look at some of the books he reads. What kind of books do you read? See, this is not a good sign. Olangoa utohi. That's why he has the bugs.
My man is not even reading much or something. Jeez. Jeez. No, and that's how you see, and this is why a lot of people, even this is the reason why people can't trust mainstream media and like
Media.
these so-called experts, because they're not just giving the proper analysis. Or even if they say, hey, we got one person who sees it this way as a person who's withholding the rights of democracy or whatever, and then this person say,
Yeah.
no, this is just the analysis from the king's perspective, or what the king's rights are. So yeah, I don't know.
No, and see, and that's what's kind of silly to me is like, so the king is using the powers that are under the Constitution.
For him, yes.
He's exercising it, and he's saying, oh, because you're exercising your political power, you must be a tyrant. You must be. This is the same thing that happens here in the US, right?
Mm.
The progressives exercise political power all the time. And everybody's like, oh, they're just progressing and defending their political position. Then when conservatives exercise political power, oh my goodness, they're authoritarian, they're fascists,
Yes,
right?
tyrants.
Like, they're tyrants. And this is the thing. So if the prime minister exercises his political power, and maybe because he's an academic, he has the Oxford credentials, right? He has all the academic credentials. They obviously, another academic would approve of him. They say, oh yeah, he's just being democratic by executing. I would love to see his analysis of one of your favorite critiques, Masi, when the PM says no one's allowed to travel overseas during COVID, and then he's traveling overseas. Is that being an authoritarian? Right? Obviously, he has the right as the PM to do that, right?
Yes.
But is he being authoritarian? No, nobody said that. But when the king exercises his power given to him in the Constitution, oh, he's trying to take them back to the 1600s. Makes zero sense. And then to say, oh, the nobles have no influence, they're just, stooges for the king. Then why did the nobles follow the prime minister in the last vote of confidence? And why did the nobles vote for this prime minister to be the prime minister? He wouldn't be prime minister without the nobles.
Yeah.
See, they don't bring that up. They don't bring up that, just maybe this guy didn't
Was just
maintain the
he
support.
sucked.
He was
He sucked.
incompetent. Yeah.
Incompetent. Yeah, no, exactly, Tua. There, like what you mentioned, all these gaps that what they're saying is it does not hold because, like what you said, then what got him to be prime minister for 3 years? Obviously, the king gave him what do gave him the benefit of the doubt to let him run, and obviously there were huge major steps and incompetency that he was displaying that he just had to withdraw his confidence. And remember, I'm just gonna say to the viewers, the PM held like he had 9 ministries under his belt. I don't care if you're the smartest person in the world.
Elon
There's no
Musk.
way. Elon. Oh, maybe Elon Musk can do it because he's gonna create AI to run the other ones. If that's gonna probably be better than what Sovaleni did. But I don't care what you were doing. To me that's a lack of delegation to develop leadership that you can trust that will do a good job. Or to the second one, to it, like we kind of mentioned, he just likes being an authoritarian, like being the leader. He wants everything to run through him, centralize a lot of the control.
Power.
Could be
Yeah.
so but they never talk about that, and that's the reason why, probably the reasons that led to his demise is just he couldn't do everything, and then he was traveling representing all of those 9 portfolios. My man couldn't get anything done. He no one was really having access to him, and that was another major fall of his. But obviously the mainstream news is saying that Soaleni had no faults. This was all the king's undoing for targeting him for the reason for him being kicked out. So
Microaggressions on the PM.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, Masi, just check real quick your connection on your mic. There's a little bit of
Okay.
feedback, but I'll pull up a comment here from Facebook from William Rakule Billy, and he states he's following the political science. LOL. Yeah, right. He's just he has no bias. This guy is giving no bias. It's just this is where the political science is saying the king is just being oppressive. Oh my goodness. Can't make this stuff up, man. Let's come back to Robert DeGiorno's analysis here.
What would Tongans be feeling given this sort of ouster was very much to do with King Tupou VI and the nobles?
Well, I mean, judged by the election results going back 20 years, people have voted for pro-democracy MPs of one kind or another. But now we're in a curious situation because the pro-democracy MPs, there's no political parties really, so they're not clearly aligned. It's not clear who's aligned which way, but they're found on both sides. And the person who raised the no confidence vote, Zeki Eke, is himself a people's representative, and he may go on to form the next government. We'll see if he can command more confidence from the palace. I mean, since these reforms in 2010, there's a sort of situation of dual power in Tonga, where on the one hand you've got the Prime Minister and a cabinet appointed by the Prime Minister. On the other hand, you've got the King and the Privy Council that sort of shadows what the official government is doing, and no one quite knows where authority lies. The king retains veto powers over legislation. The king continues to appoint judges and even the attorney general, and the king holds powers of dissolution. So even though the king, in theory, is not supposed to control the appointments of ministers, nevertheless, the king can always threaten a dissolution. I think this is a sign of the incompleteness of Tonga's reforms. And perhaps this current king is resistant to reform and wants to pull back on the reforms, but perhaps a future monarch like the current king's brother might allow some further progress in the direction of democratization in Tonga.
Yeah, so given the resistance...
Any thoughts on that, Masi?
I find it. Oh well, hopefully my mic is better. But if there's any issues,
Yeah,
let
it
me
might
know.
not be you. It might be my connection because even when they're talking, it pops up. So it might just be me. Go ahead, Masi.
Okay. No, I was gonna say I find it ironic when the anchor is asking a guy looks like he's living in Wellington, and maybe he's in tune with the Tongan people, asking him what do the Tongan people feel with this ousting of? I don't know.
So
I
so
find it
maybe
so
maybe
ironic.
Masi maybe Masi he had Kumala, Talo, and some Ufi. Maybe he
Yeah,
had all three. We were just saying he had Talo and Kumala. Maybe he had Ufi as well. So
Ufi as
he
well.
he understands. He understands. But go ahead.
I just find it funny. Like, oh my goodness, how the heck? I've never heard of this guy. Never seen him before. This is the only time I've seen. So I don't know. Maybe he's involved with the underground Tongans nation or something. I don't know, but maybe he understands. No, see, just this is the thing. Just this whole they're creating this narrative how Tonga is going backwards, but no, Tonga has made many steps, and plus to me, this is all the people's representative are the majority. They decide. There's 17 of them and nine nobles. They decide who's prime minister. And like what he mentioned, there were people from both sides who elected him, both from the noble side and the people side, and he was elected. And you know, the people who voted him out are the same people too. The difference is he had no support from the nobles because it was truth. He wasn't Tonga was not doing anything better than the last time he was there. So it's just on merit, and it's almost like Dua. You know when somebody wants to take power, there's really nothing wrong with the nation. They just have to create a narrative to cause a
Yeah.
revolt or to say something's wrong. I feel like this is what they're trying to do. Tonga could take steps to improve here and there, but I don't think it needs to be. I think the system Tonga has right now has been good because one, the people are in charge. There's 17 representatives. They are the one in charge in electing who's going to be the prime minister. Then the prime minister wants to elect his cabinet. To me, that's fine. I don't know what kind of tools he's trying to. And that's the thing. He's trying to make it more full democratic and make Tonga like the UK. That it's just a
Yeah.
figurative. Our monarchy. It's just a figurative, just too good to look at, and you just be there and not to be included in the political process. Which I disagree. That it's good to have check and balances from both sides of the government. Oh, it's all three, right? You have
Yeah.
the legislative, then you have the executive, and then the judicial side, which is appointed by the king. That to me, that's fine. And like I don't know if he knows, but like the king's not gonna if he just says he withdrew his confidence on somebody. It doesn't mean that they're no longer exercising their right. He's just letting you know that if there's anything wrong, at least the king said, I wasn't part of that because I
Yeah.
withdrew my confidence. You can still exercise your political role, but obviously the nobles kind of advocate that. I think it was that lady, the who was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She wasn't doing a good job, so he withdrew his support for her, and then the king withdrew his support for the PM because I don't know if he was doing a good job in the Ministry of Defense because I don't know how you're running the defense if you're always overseas doing other things for other ministries. So yeah, I don't know. It's very lacking on debating and analyzing the merit of the reason why he got kicked out, and then
Yeah.
what he resigned because he was gonna get kicked out. Instead of this whole saying that the king is oppressing people's development to be more democratic. That's not the case. But I don't know if you had anything else, Dua.
Yeah. I mean, see, this to me is a modern day example of why the West shouldn't be revealing our history, because the West self-imposes what they perceive
Mm,
our history should be, right? Like this analysis here is not taking into account the history, the culture, let alone the actual events that are going on. This is more an exercise of Tonga is not behaving the way we think a quote unquote democracy should behave. And therefore, because it's not behaving the way they think it should behave, what's the outlier? Oh,
mm,
there is a royal family. Oh, the royal family must be the problem, because that's not how New Zealand or Australia or Europe is governed now, right?
yeah.
Without understanding that, number one, Australia, New Zealand, and them, they're not Tonga, first off. Then number two, pure democracies are not a great solution. And number three, Tonga has the right to determine what kind of government they want. And like you said, they have the people's representatives outnumber the nobles,
Nobles. Yeah.
right? And the nobles voted for this PM, and
Yeah.
people can change their minds. They come to a point where they're like, that's why the US has impeachment. That's why other, like Canada, has a vote of no confidence option in there. Everyone has that option, right? And
Yeah.
wants to change their mind. And for some reason, these guys, just because they maybe like the former PM and he checks all the right boxes for them, that doesn't mean something's wrong with the political system. That could just mean the people weren't happy.
Yeah.
And the people agreed with the king, because the representatives of the people, who the
Yeah.
people selected to speak on their behalf, also agreed with what the king said.
Yeah. No, and just to
So,
add,
yeah.
on to if the people's representatives who are elected by the people said no, Sovaleni was doing a good job, guess what? Sovaleni would still be in power. And if all the nobles, only 9 of them, if all of them voted that no, he was doing a bad job, that nine votes is not enough to kick him out. He would have still
Yeah.
been PM. Obviously, this was like in your face, like the majority saying, no, you're not doing a good job, Soaleni. We're gonna have to remove you. So before he gets removed, he resigns. So, and that's the thing. I don't know, this whole creating this narrative like Tonga's being, this is so democratic because you got the people's representative and then the
Yeah.
king's council, pretty much the nobles saying he's not doing a good job. So that's pretty uh well that's pretty comprehensive um solution to the comprehensive evidence that it's just a good system that Tonga has because it was both sides that voted him
Yeah.
out. So
No, and
yeah,
not only that, we've had a dissolved government before where the king
yeah,
dissolved it, and guess what the people did? They
they
voted
put him
back all
back.
the same people. So
Yes,
then the king's like, okay, all right.
people. Yeah,
Obviously, I disagreed with it. I dissolved it. The people put back the exact same reps, and those
yeah,
reps selected the exact same PM, and it moved forward.
correct.
So,
And that
but
to
you
me
see, they
that's a
don't bring any
functioning.
of that up.
Yes, and that's a good functioning system. The king dissolved it,
Yeah,
and the people said, "No, I think we're still gonna give this guy a go.
a
Give him a
shot.
fair go."
Yeah,
He went, and then he was back in power. So obviously, they don't want to talk about that. They say Tonga is still in a crisis of progressing democracy.
incomplete transformation, according to Robert DiGiorno over here. Maria, ikaw tama.
To change. What sort of public reaction can we expect in the coming days and weeks? And I'm asking this question in the context of the 2006 pro-democracy protests that
Oh,
did turn quite
geez.
violent at the time.
Yes, there were riots in the business district of Nuku'alofa, very serious riots. A lot of people died. A lot of businesses were burnt. The economy was dealt a major blow. There's been no signs of that kind of unrest. That was strange, that unrest back in November, December 2006, because it occurred when reforms were already on the table. There was already a move in that kind of direction. There's been no sign of similar kind of unrest since. And there was an occasion where the monarch previously withdrew confidence from the prime minister and forced a fresh election. And then that prime minister, who was the key pro-democracy prime minister, Akinisi Pahiva, now died in 2019. He was re-elected despite the king withdrawing confidence back then.
See how contradictory he is?
Well, we'll see.
The king has dominant power, authoritative, and then now he's saying, oh yeah, but the people threw him back in. See, well, at least he brought that up.
That's good.
And then I mean at least he brought it up, but still then he's contradicting himself. First he said the king has absolute power, but then he says, oh no, the people have enough power to put back the PM if they wanted to, even if the king said otherwise. I don't know. We'll let this finish out and then we'll close out our comments here.
What happens at the next election scheduled for late 2025. a new government will be elected on Christmas Eve, perhaps with Aisake Eke, the mover of the no confidence motion, appearing as the alternative prime minister. But he won't have very long in office before he has to face the public in a general election.
Okay, John Frankel, really good to get your thoughts on what has been a rather tumultuous day for Tonga. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
Oh yeah, thank you for all the consumption of kumala and talo and ufi, so that you could
Thank
speak
you.
on behalf of the Tongan people. But Malo, Masi, any closing thoughts on Robert DiGiorno?
Mr. Wellington over there. No, this is just we kind of talked about it. This is just the system Tonga has right now that is just functioning properly, and it's the people and the nobles and the king were not satisfied, and that's the reason why he was voted out. He wasn't doing a good job. The people were not doing better than 3 years ago, which he's kind of been under his administration. That's the only reason why he's voted out. To me, just regarding Isaac Eke has been voted as the prime minister. He's put on the mantle to lead the nation. It's no easy task, but right now, hey, give him the shot. Let him do what he can in this 1 year, and then we'll see the results with the upcoming election. If he's still voted back in, he will be most likely continue as PM. If not, hey, at least the people has spoken, and we'll see a year. Yeah, and see what he can do. And it's not to me. This is where the real work starts because he has a limited of time to construct his new cabinet and to start, leading the government of Tonga to hopefully a better outcome than the last three. But it's not easy, not easy. But yeah, I don't know if you had anything else, Dwar.
No, I've already said everything I need to say about Robert DiGiorno, and maybe next time before he has his next analysis. Now that we concluded he's had, Kumala, Manioke, Kumala, Talo, and Ufi. Maybe he should add some Manioke and Hopa, and that'll give him a well-rounded analysis so that he
Yes.
can, really understand what the Tongan people are feeling and
No,
speak on their behalf.
right, and that's the sad thing of they missed the opportunity, this news media thing, because they never even at least tried to attempt to figure out why Sovaleni was voted out. It was just everything on inhibiting the progress of Tonga's developing to be more democratic. Not even even a clue to see Sovaleni mishaps, but it was everything on one side. That's why it was like, man, not a fair analysis, which is unfortunate from this news media.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think we see this from the media worldwide.
Mm,
The overly academic, overly expert, right? All the experts from this is one of the things that I think COVID really shifted people's minds,
yeah,
or at least for me. When I hear the word expert, it almost starts off negative, right? Like when I hear someone saying I'm an expert, I'm like, oh, great. This person's going to act like they can dictate to me what I should think, how I should behave, what things I can't say. They're even going to tell me how my kids should be, given over to the quote unquote experts, because they're going to be the ones to tell my kids what is good, bad, right, wrong. And so there's a global movement of distrust with the media and
mm,
its association of promoting certain people. Like, obviously, this piece that we just watched, if we just watched that and we didn't know anything about Tonga, we would assume
yeah,
that PM Sovaleni was just knocking it out of the park. The king just
yeah,
didn't like it. He just wants absolute power. Um, and it's the same thing. For the longest time, the media here in the US was saying Joe Biden was doing backflips. He's like passing the GMAT, the LSAT. He knows everything. He's just off the charts on his IQ and everything. And that's what they were telling us for years and years. We're now going to shift to a narrative. I mean, and from your experience, Masi, Jacinda Ardern, she was pretty much kind of the same thing, right? She's the perfect example. What a great,
Yep.
like everything's awesome. What was it
Yep.
like with kind of like her and the media, the relationship she had with the media?
She was given kind of like how Joe Biden was treated throughout the whole past kind of 4 years, not just very surface level questions, and if there was a follow up that needed to be asked, that follow up question wouldn't come in the interview. You know what I mean? And the media just gave. When you give somebody the benefit of the doubt, like when they make a mistake the first time, then you just kind of forget about it. Then when they keep doing it, you just kind of then you're not giving the benefit of doubt. You're like turning the other eye, pretending like you didn't see it. So the media really gave Jacinda a good narrative that nothing she did was gonna they were gonna share it with the world. They were just gonna just kind of keep it on the deal. Like for example, when with the abortion, that New Zealand is one of the few countries that you can have an abortion up to the birth of a child. That legislative was passed during midnight in New Zealand under a level 4 lockdown, which is nobody was allowed to kind of move in
Mhm.
Auckland City. So that was like dark in the night when there was really no coverage on that. But that wasn't really coverage because that's pretty. I mean, even if you're a pro-choice, but to say you can remove a baby from 9 months, and this is a lady who, she's a female, she gave birth, and you can remove a life like that at 9 months. That's pretty gnarly. Like that's pretty crazy that New Zealand's one of the only countries that it's allowed to do that. So that's pretty crazy. So just things like that. But that was not really talked about in the media, or even asked the question, why would
Yeah,
you guys have an emergency session in
for
parliament
that.
in the midst of evening while everybody's locked down and sleeping, and you're having a meeting to pass this legislation because you didn't want it to be talked about so that people can know how you're kind of a horrible person, or maybe not so good of a person if you were pro Jacinda. So those were the little things that Jacinda was kind of given the benefit of the doubt from the media, and just things like when she was really pushing the whole mandatory of people getting vaccinated. There was really no debate from the media saying, why would you do something mandatory when the people who are actually dying are people who have health issues and are the age of 65 and over.
And
And
older.
maybe those people should,
Yeah.
yes, right? Those are the people maybe should get vaccinated instead of saying every people, even up to kids, they all need to get vaccinated, and it was mandatory. If you didn't get vaccinated, you lose your job. Like there was really no pushback, and those are the kind of little examples that the media didn't do their job to at least discuss the other
Yeah.
half of the people who are thinking, okay, this is a little bit infringe government control on your
Well, and
life.
see, and
So
that's the thing. If Xiao Sovaleni, and let's use this thing, when the media likes you, they won't see that as, hey, that's a bit authoritative, right?
yeah,
But if it's someone who they don't like,
yeah,
you could do less than half of that type of authoritative move, and they're like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, right? And so you can't rely on mainstream media anymore. I don't
no,
care what anyone tells you. Mainstream, there's a reason why people are not trusting mainstream media because of exactly what you're saying, Masi, right? You can only lie to me for so long, and then at some point I have to take responsibility of, I know you're lying to me, mainstream media, so and I either have to be honest to myself and say, no, I don't care what you're telling me. What you're doing tells me you're lying to me. So either, like they said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, because I
correct.
now know you're lying to me. And the majority of people have moved on. There's a couple comments here want to bring up. Renegade, malo. When the rest of Xiaoxi's interview, I'm kidding here. Renegade, but I want to say, are you talking about Xiaoxi Sovaleni? Nah, just joking. I know everyone's talking about Xiaoxi Ilayu. I hope you're not talking about Xiaoxi Sovaleni. But yes, we've had a lot of positive feedback. It was over a 3-hour recording, so we're gonna have 3 parts to it. Released part 1, I think middle of next week. Renegade, we're gonna drop part 2, and then probably a week from there we'll drop part 3. So it's a 3-part series there. Some nice words here from Renegade. Is saying you both are doing great work with the channel. Appreciate it. And
Malo
yeah,
Renegade.
Malo. Renegade says, yeah, Jacinda was the worst PM ever. Also have here from Stan Reed, Malo. He says, Malo Taulava, Malo Stan.
Malo Stan, thank you for joining in.
For jumping in. And just for Renegade, he did confirm, yes, I'm talking about Ilayu.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. I appreciate the clarification there, Renegade. So we're going to jump in here and we're just going to, I don't know if we'll do the whole half hour, but this is, we're going to have the similar thing, I think, with what they did for New Zealand, because somehow the media is like shocked. They don't understand why. And just kind of give some background, Mussy, before we get into this, on the government setup in New Zealand right now. Pretty conservative. I know one of the candidates that you support strongly is one of the 3 party. Is it a 3-party alliance?
Yeah, they're in a coalition. Yeah, they're in a coalition agreement for this term.
Just give a quick summary of that before we start playing the review here.
All right, so we kind of we talked about Jacinda. Jacinda kind of same thing with Xiaoxi Sovaleni. They resigned, right? They resigned. They kind of quit. They were feeling the heat that they were not doing a good job. So Jacinda resigns. Then her deputy, or they elected this Hipkins. He was the one that carried on for Jacinda. So he finished out the term. Then it happened the elections. The elections happened. New Zealand chose a 3-way party. The majority was the national government, which is that beta guy, Chris Luxon. He's the one that represents that party. And then the ACT party is represented by that Seymour. I don't know if you kind of follow Dua. He's the one that's kind of pushing the treaty of Waitangi that's kind of caused a little rift in New Zealand. So that's him and his party. And then New Zealand First, which is headed by Winston Peters. Their movement is more of kind of like America First agenda. Their agenda is just New Zealand First, and that's kind of like how Trump said, when other countries are just trying to put themselves first, and just like New Zealand, they have all these like political that they need to maybe spend money on these like diversity or things, whatever stuff that's probably eating up resources that they could use on maybe building infrastructure or building the stability of our energy, just all that. And New Zealand First is just don't want to play with that. They just want to help create our jobs, build infrastructure, and just create a better New Zealand for the future. So those are the 3 kind of parties that got elected. They're the ones in charge now, and they are, to me, they say that it's far right for New Zealand, they're saying. So, but to me, they're just, the thing is, they're just opposite from the other parties are the Labor, Maori Party, and the Green Party. So they're just opposite from those. The Green Party, they're
just not as progressive as the other guys.
Yes. Well, they're the Green, they're pretty out there. They want to universal income and tax everybody and all of that kind of stuff. Is like, dude, that's not gonna work. And then the Maori Party are kind of just the typical parties who are just everything just sure to do with Maori and just getting their rights and everything. And it's just it's one of those sensitive topics, because like we kind of talked about Tua, right? It's just you wanna create a whole Maori state, but it's really difficult when you got bunch of Asians, bunch of non-Maoris that are already settled here in New Zealand and everything. So it's one of those things that it's pretty difficult. But But yeah, and though these three parties are just opposite of the three parties that I kind of mentioned earlier with the Green and Maori and Labor that are in government now. So, and another thing is, most of most of the people that are in cabinet now, most of them have Maori ancestry. So they're Winston Peters, Shane Jones, and some of the other ones from the other parties. And this is the most ever Maoris have ever been in cabinet. That's what they say from what I saw. So I don't know. So it's kind of one of those things. I'm just,
Kind of
they always like the
interesting.
left
Yeah.
like to talk about, the racial that people are not getting the proper
So,
elevation to power. But like, hey, at the same time, these are Maoris who just.
so
The thing
yeah,
is, it's not a racial thing. It's just that people have different ideas, and
ideas. Exactly. So
that's what it is.
you're telling me the progressives, when I say progressives, I mean the far left, always wanted minority representation.
Yeah.
They get it with the most Maori representation, and then they're upset because it's going right. Right. And this is
Yeah.
something that I think is interesting. And I'll make this final comment to kind of tie this to the Tonga situation. The more democratic Tonga became, the more unstable it became. I'll give you a quick example. Remember in the one with the last video we saw, he said, "Oh, it was kind of a strange riot." Right? Because
Mm,
Tupou the fifth was already said, "I'm going to give you guys all these
yeah.
democratic reforms,"
Reform.
and then a riot happens where the capital city is burned down.
Yeah.
Anyone who is trying to be, in my opinion, trying to look at this as objective as possible, the question then pops up. If the reforms were coming and guaranteed and they were on their way, why was there a riot? And my understanding from some of the people I know on the ground was there was actually a desperate effort by the quote unquote pro democracy group,
Hmm.
because there was a real possibility they were going to lose power in this whole becoming more democratic. That is what drove the riots. That's what I understand. It was a very small group that started the fires and everything else. And then once people see other people acting
Yeah.
poorly, it's like an invitation for everyone else. Once you see someone taking a free TV and you've always wanted a free TV or a big TV, there's a temptation to do that. And once that happens, it kind of snowballs. It had the appearance of social unrest because there was no democratic movement. But the reality is the democratic reforms were already like 3/4 of the way done. So
Yeah.
we have to ask ourselves, what are the motives for those? And to me, the only thing I can think of is the quote unquote Democratic Party was unhappy with the changes, because when you have change happen, it doesn't happen the way you think it will. You think because you're the Democratic Party and pushing for democracy that when you go Democratic, you would think you would become the leader. What happens? The Democratic reform comes, and the guy who led the Democratic reform for years and years did not become the first PM
Hmm.
with the
Yeah.
Democratic reform. So
Yeah.
this comes back to what you were saying earlier, Masi. Beware of something that just sounds good for the sake of sounding good, right? When
Hmm.
someone says they're pro-democratic, that doesn't mean that they're really pro-democratic. What they mean, there's a real chance they're just saying, I want to be the leader
I want
and I
power.
want to go against who's in charge now. Just
Yeah.
like, just like BLM.
Yeah.
Just because they have Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that that's their number one goal. Now it's already a well accepted fact that BLM scammed millions and millions of dollars and didn't help anyone. So just because something sounds good doesn't mean that it's good for you. So be very, very careful with that. So just kind of keep that in mind, that just because something sounds good doesn't mean you go put all your eggs in that basket.
Yep.
There's a lot of wisdom in, oh, okay, sounds good.
Yep.
We'll see how it plays out. Right? Just like, the media reports, oh, this person's great. Joe Biden is the smartest guy in the world. He's so smart. He eats ice cream every day and does his homework at the same time. And then we find out later, oh yeah, where homeboy was walking off to the neighbor's house and nobody knew he was doing that because nobody was paying attention. So this will definitely, one of the pros has been this podcast. It's definitely something that takes a lot of time and energy. Some days, not too excited to do edits and upload on social media or even do a live, but when it is done, I'm pretty proud of the effort that we've made. Really grateful for the viewers, and blown away by the success that we had so far on the program. But want to thank everyone. Please subscribe, share, so that we can continue the momentum and hopefully continue it into 2025. So that's my summary of 2024 here, and leave it up to Mr. Atearoa to close us out.
No, thank you, too. I just want to acknowledge that this was your idea to kind of launch this, and I appreciate you, because I know a lot of the times when we do this, you're always the later one. I'm more. It's not too bad in my time, but I appreciate your time, and for allowing this to kind of grow and starting it. That's always the hard thing, but I appreciate you, Dua, for starting this, and want to give thanks to the viewers. Thank you for always viewing our content and enjoying it. It's just something that we like to discuss, and we feel like it's important just to talk about it. Because I feel like if we don't talk about it, we don't understand each other's views and other ideas. And this is just one of our ideas that can be challenged and critique, and we all learn. And or like what Xiaoxi Ilayu said, this is my piece, and he throws it in his soup, and we can take it what comes of it. But appreciate everyone's following of our program. I appreciate our guests too that have kind of put the time to kind of join us to kind of just have a conversation about Polynesian history and their background and just other things that they find interesting that we can just talk about as Polynesian people. Well, I'm also working on having another guest that will probably be very relevant to Polynesian history. Just waiting because this is the holiday season, so just kind of waiting until people are busy at the moment. So just maybe I'll try to make an effort to contact them. And I know we have some other interviews with Xiaoxi, the two part kind of series that will come out, and then I think we got another one do it with the tech Bruce Tuguafu's one, eh? Or has that been
Yes,
released?
that one. We need that one. I gotta get through the editing. We have a handful of interviews that we need to get through. People are also, just to add to that, Masi, people are also now taking our content, cutting it up, and posting it on their social media, which is kind of cool.
Oh wow.
Right? Like they're starting to use our content, which to me, that's kind of like, oh, okay. So not only are they enjoying it, but they're also creating more content off of the content that we're providing, which we're excited to see that.
The year 2025, and we'll keep doing our best with this Polynesian Eyes podcast to um, bringing more guests and just kind of expanding the views and the Polynesian Eyes kind of network, because you guys are all our viewers. They're all of our network. We're just learning and growing at the same time. But I appreciate everyone's subscription and also viewing our content.
Malo, Masi, as always, appreciate everyone's time and our invitation as we started this program and will continue to end the year with and into 2025. Be bold, ask the questions. Peace.